こんにちは、ハリケーンフットボールです。今回の教材は、レアルソシエダの久保建英に関する動画です。この移籍市場で最も移籍が期待されていた日本人プレーヤーは、三笘薫と久保建英だったのではないでしょうか。しかし、残念ながら2人ともに残留の可能性が高まってきており、まだ移籍市場は残っているために、最後の最後まで移籍を期待したいところです。今回はピタゴラスインブーツというチャンネルで、この久保建英を分析している動画をお届けします。少し長い動画でしたので、前半部分を扱っていますが、この前半部分では、ゴール、アシスト、パス、ドリブル、クロス、ヘディング、ディフェンス、ロングパスに関して、プレミアリーグの代表的な右ウィンガーである、サラー、サカ、マドゥエケ、アントニーの指標と比べながら、久保の立ち位置や、プレーの分析をしています。実際にどのように話しているのか、チェックしてみましょう。
Japan's answer to Saka, or a physically deficient winger who could echo Juan Mata's struggles out wide at Manchester United? Just how good is Takefusa Kubo?
They needed to is Pythagoras, who again is well into his 30s. Here's Sadiq, finding Marino, finding Take Kubo. Is it going to be 3-0? It is.
In terms of goal threat, Kubo has a very low XG, but he does exceed it with his actual goals at 0.22. So that indicates he's a relatively efficient finisher when he does get opportunities. And again, that 40% shot accuracy also suggests that he's quite selective, efficient with his shots. I think the bigger issue is not getting into enough goal-scoring positions. Good shooting technique, good power, placement, whether he's shooting from distance or running in on goal, seems composed, which again is a positive sign for potential improvement in terms of his numbers. I think the bigger issue is perhaps his lack of physical power, which limits his ability to force his way into goal-scoring situations, particularly in low-block, crowded situations. I think the other issue is his low shot volume. He needs to find ways to increase the number of shots he takes to boost his goal-scoring numbers. I think a system which allows him to pass and move and then find himself in pockets of space to score goals, that could improve his output. I've just passed my FIFA agents exam, so I'm now officially a FIFA licensed football agent. So if you're a young player who needs advice, whether it's nutrition, whether it's technical, tactical, psychological, I can guide your career from academy level all the way to the pro level. If you're an existing pro level player and you need representation when it comes to contract negotiations, as well as all that technical stuff, transfer strategy, what's the best steps to take with your career, we can give you that guidance. We also work closely with clubs and directors of football, helping them with issues such as scouting, how to get the best out of their personnel, giving coaches tactical guidance as well. All the services that we can provide are all available on our website. Check the description below. So if you want Pythagoras in Boots as your football agent or even as a consultant, please don't hesitate to get in touch.
That was convinced. Or else they had to part with the big bucks and take him from Almeria.
In terms of Kubo's possession stats, he's someone who does get involved with the possession element of the game, but the volume isn't high enough to sort of push him into that wide playmaker category. He's not dictating the entire flow of the possession game. And ally that with his 76% pass accuracy, which is lower than the 80% sort of benchmark of a wide playmaker in terms of accuracy. He's someone who's a bit more like a Mo Salah in terms of his link-up play can at times be good, executing fast 1-2s, demonstrating good movement off the ball. He can connect with his teammates, but he's not someone who's very safe, very sort of intelligent in terms of his usage of the ball. He's not conservative enough in terms of his pass accuracy to make him reliable as a wide playmaker. He needs to improve his decision making in possession, know when to choose safer passes, but also safe progression type passes. There's just a bit too much looseness in his overall possession game, but there's definitely scope for growth. Despite the slight concerns about his link-up game, in terms of his assist production, his creativity, he's a very productive player and he's got a high number of assists. So effective in the final third and a knack for setting up his teammates. He's got a delicate, intricate passing style with regards to his killer passing, and that's characteristic of many Japanese players who are also quite adept at making these little weighted passes, slotted through balls. It's a very sort of Japanese type trait in football. He's got excellent vision, awareness on the field, frequently taking sort of little looks around him to assess the structure of play in the final third and spotting little opportunities to create goal-scoring chances. So this ability to keep his head up and be aware of his surroundings is a significant asset. His pass execution in terms of his killer passes, is generally good, solid success rate on key passes, through balls, and he's capable of making complex type passes such as sort of reverse passes, which are not only creative but also challenging to execute. So obviously he's not going to be a top level playmaker like a De Bruyne, but I think his passing is solid for a wide player, highly effective. I think his playmaking skill from this wide area in terms of opening up defenses rather than control, it feels suited to Champions League level. He's also got this strength to shield the ball and buy himself time under pressure, and that allows him to make these calculated decisions in the final third.
Kubo.
In terms of his dribbling, Kubo averages 8.72 dribbles per game with a 52% success rate. He's a high volume ball carrier. His style is reminiscent of players like Bernardo Silva, diminutive, quick changes of direction, agile, elusive. Not too powerful, relies more on technical skill rather than sheer explosiveness, slight movements, feints to unbalanced defenders rather than sheer pace. He's got low center of gravity. In terms of his footwork, he relies on the slalom, close control style of dribble, but he does have pockets of skill, for example, stepovers. I think he lacks the physical power and explosiveness typical of successful Premier League wingers. I think that would limit his ability to consistently beat more powerful, pacey fullbacks in 1v1 situations. I think in terms of is he going to be effective in the Premier League, I think he would need to have an overlapping fullback, which would provide him with space, support, allow him to combine with teammates and come inside. I think if he's in a situation where he's the isolated winger, as we see in modern day setups, he could potentially struggle because I don't think he's got that pace and power to constantly really power his way through. Just to let you know, we've just created a new channel. It's going to be more like a podcast type of setting. You're going to meet the rest of the Pythag gang, in-depth analysis as always, but in more team-based type scenarios, more hot topic based content. So please subscribe to the Pythagoras Perspective. And also if you're interested in watch-alongs and weekly fantasy football discussions, also consider subscribing to us in our playback channel. All of these are available in the description below. See you guys there.
And worked over to Kubo, much better. Cross is a good one, and the opening goal comes. It's brace.
Kubo's a frequent and accurate crosser. It's a significant part of his game. His left foot is his primary weapon for his crossing. Good finesse, good precision. Even his right foot, he can cross as well. Again, good whip as well. And it adds an element of unpredictability to his delivery. Now, obviously, his main cross is his inverted cross with the left foot, where he aims for the far post. And that makes him a really significant threat, particularly if you combine him with a player on the opposite wing who can sort of go towards the far post and is a strong header of the ball. In a team like, for example, if he goes to a Liverpool, I think his crossing ability could be highly beneficial. Someone like Darwin Núñez or Gakpo is playing as a left wing forward. These type of players could be ideal recipients of Kubo's precise crossing. In terms of the variety of crossing, I think he's obviously adept at this inverted cross. With regards to his right foot cross, he tends to also target the far post. So I think he needs to work on which areas he's targeting with his crossing. He's got these favourite spots where to cross, but obviously he needs to become a bit more unpredictable, I think, in terms of the areas he's targeting. I'd like to see more cutbacks, for example. I'd like to see more near post deliveries. So varying the height and speed of his crosses, that's the next part of how to push on his crossing game.
For Morales, but played by Elostondo. And then Cuenca's header will go out.
From an aerial perspective, Kubo is not going to be a force to be reckoned with, and the stats indicate that. He's someone who doesn't really get involved with many aerial duels, a bit like a Mo Salah. But what I would say is that even though the aerial duel success rate is very low, say comparable to a Bukayo Saka, and his goal threat is pretty much non-existent, from the eye test he is someone who does compete when he's up against players that are similar in size to him. So if he's up against a fullback, he will jump up, he will try and compete for headers, and most of the time he is a bit of a nuisance. I'd say against bigger players, of course, he's going to be dominated. So I don't think you can expect Kubo to have this as any form of strength. But what I would say is that he's not necessarily a pure liability in this sense. He's got a competitive spirit. He does have a decent leap. And yeah, he's not the strongest player, but because of that leap element, he can sometimes just flick on balls that you wouldn't really expect him to. So if he was to move to a physical league, say the Premier League, yeah, he's not going to be relatively effective, but doesn't necessarily mean he has to be a pure liability.
Yes, Real Sociedad through and through.
In terms of defensive contribution, Kubo doesn't really contribute heavily in terms of sheer volume of defensive actions, but his success rate when he does engage is respectable. He demonstrates good defensive awareness, intelligence. He's not hesitant to track back, support his teammates defensively. And despite his diminutive stature, he's pretty strong and holds his own in shoulder-to-shoulder duels, and his ability to stay on his feet and use his body effectively makes him a formidable defender, particularly when he finds himself in that right-back type of situation. I think his standing tackles are more effective than his slide tackles. When he stays on his feet, he reads the play, he intercepts and challenges, and is more effective without going to ground. But his slide tackles are less reliable. He doesn't really, he's quite diminutive, so his legs are not particularly that long, so people can evade his slide tackles quite easily. He does have a good work ethic, like I said, because of the tracking back, supporting his fullback. So he's got that level of professionalism and a willingness to contribute to the team's overall defensive effort. His defensive positioning is generally good, allows him to cover his right back effectively. He's quite defensively intelligent, and that makes it difficult for opponents to get past him.
Picks out Badanacheya. He was caught afterwards, but play continues. Badanacheya.
In terms of his long passing game, I think Kubo particularly excels at switching the ball to the opposite winger. These type of long passes tend to be more accurate, well executed, and if he uses his instep in doing so in terms of adding a bit of bend to it, then it's even better for him. I think his vertical long passes are less precise. He struggles with accuracy, I think, when attempting to find forwards in vertical spaces. So this is a part of his game that he needs to develop more precision and accuracy. I think he needs to focus on refining it. I think if he uses a more curl technique, that could potentially improve his accuracy. When he's trying to use the sort of laces technique to get under the ball, it becomes more of a hit and hope pass.
They don't need a goal at the moment, and let's see, they're in the ascendancy back for how long? The header over the...
次は解説です。今回はプレーの解説や表現の仕方に関するボキャブラリーの解説を少し多く入れています。簡単な単語や表現に見えるものの、サッカーやプレーの説明をする際に使われる独特な表現や便利な表現ですので、サッカー英語を知りたい方は、ぜひチェックしてください。それでは解説です。
And ally that with his 76% pass accuracy.
ally は、名詞としても動詞としても使える便利な単語です。名詞では、同盟国や味方などを意味し、政治・歴史の話題でもよく登場します。動詞では、誰かと手を組むや、連携するといった意味があり、人や組織、またはアイデア同士を組み合わせるときに使います。また抽象的なアイデアに対しても使え、創造性と規律を結びつけるといった言い方も可能です。トイックやビジネス英語では、戦略的な関係構築を語る際にも非常に役立つ語です。
And ally that with his 76% pass accuracy. And ally that with his 76% pass accuracy, who are also quite adept at making these little weighted passes.
アデプトアットは何かのスキルや分野に対して非常に得意や熟練していると言いたいときに使う表現です。グッドアットよりもフォーマルかつ高度な印象を与えます。ビジネス英語やトイックにも品質し、何かに長けたプロフェッショナルといったニュアンスを表現するのに適しています。ウェイテッドパスは味方がボールを取りやすいようにスピードや強さをちょうどよく調整して出すパスのことを指します。サッカーではスルーパスやクロスなどでこの技術が非常に重要です。力加減のうまいパスやタイミングと精度を両立させたパスと訳されることもあります。初心者でも感覚的に理解しやすいスポーツ英語の一つです。
Who are also quite adept at making these little weighted passes. Who are also quite adept at making these little weighted passes. Who are also quite adept at making these little weighted passes. Diminutive, quick changes of direction, agile, elusive.
イルーシブは、ある対象が簡単には捉えられない、理解しにくいといった場面で使われる形容詞です。例えば、人の態度が曖昧だったり、説明がはっきりしないとき、あるいはスポーツ選手が俊敏で相手をかわし続けるようなときに、イルーシブという表現がぴったりです。捕まえようとしても、スルリと逃げるようなイメージで理解すると良いでしょう。日常会話、ビジネス、スポーツ解説など幅広く使われる便利な言葉です。
Diminutive, quick changes direction, agile, elusive. Diminutive, quick changes direction, agile, elusive. He relies on the slalom close control style of dribble.
クロスコントロールは、サッカーなどでボールを足元で細かく丁寧に扱う技術を意味します。ドリブル中でもボールが体から離れず、まるで足にくっついているようなプレースタイルがこれです。メッシやイニエスタのような選手がこの技術に優れており、狭いスペースでもディフェンダーをかわせる大きな要因になっています。 ドリブルがうまいと一言で言っても、クロスコントロールが高いかどうかは大きな違いを生みます。英語ではサッカー解説や選手分析の中で頻繁に使われる表現です。
He relies on the slalom close control style of dribble. He relies on the slalom close control style of dribble, but he does have pockets of skill, for example, step overs.
ポケットズ・オブ・スキルは、全体的にはまだ未熟だけれど、部分的に高度なスキルを見せる場面で使われる表現です。例えば若手サッカー選手について、この選手はまだ未完成だが、ところどころ素晴らしいプレーを見せると言いたいときにぴったりの言い方です。ここでのポケットは、物理的なポケットではなく、限られた小さな空間や範囲という意味の比喩です。日常会話ではあまり登場しませんが、スポーツ実況やビジネス分析など、ネイティブが抽象的に評価をする文脈でよく見かけます。ステップオーバーは、サッカーのドリブルテクニックの一つで、日本語では、またぎフェイントと呼ばれることが多いです。プレイヤーが足をボールの上で素早く回し、蹴ると見せかけて進行方向を変えることで、相手を欺く動作です。この技は相手にタイミングを狂わせるのに効果的で、特にロナウドやネイマールのような選手が得意としています。英語の実況や選手解説では非常に頻繁に登場する用語なので、サッカー英語を学ぶ上では覚えておきたい基本表現です。
But he does have pockets of skill, for example, step overs. But he does have pockets of skill, for example, step overs. But he does have pockets of skill, for example, step overs. In-depth analysis, as always.
インデプスは、ある物事について、表面的ではなく、詳しく徹底的に扱っているときに使われる表現です。例えばニュース、分析記事、レポート、研究、YouTube の解説動画などで、インデプスアナリシスで、詳細な分析。インデプスインタビューで、徹底取材のように使われます。ディープやディテールドと似た意味を持ちますが、専門性や網羅性を強調するのが特徴です。日常会話というよりも、アカデミックやビジネス、報道の文脈でよく使われる語彙です。
In-depth analysis, as always. In-depth analysis, as always. Now, obviously, his main cross is his inverted cross with the left foot.
インバーティッドクロスは、サッカーで近年よく見られる戦術的なクロスの一つです。右利きの選手が右サイド、左利きの選手が左サイドでプレーするのに対し、インバーテッドウィンガーの場合はその逆サイドでプレーするウィンガーのことです。例えば、左利きの選手が右サイドでプレーし、中央にカットインして、得意な左足でクロスを上げるのが、インバーティッドクロスです。このクロスは内側から放たれるため、ファーポストに走り込む味方への効果的な攻撃手段になります。
Now, obviously, his main cross is his inverted cross with the left foot. Now, obviously, his main cross is his inverted cross with the left foot. And most of the time, he is a bit of a nuisance.
ニューセンスは、誰かにとって困った存在や、厄介な相手を意味する単語で、日常会話からスポーツ、ビジネスまで幅広く使われます。例えば、サッカー解説で、この選手はスピードや技術は平均的だが、常に動いて相手にとって厄介な存在だという時などに表現されます。また、近所の騒音、虫、混雑などに対して使われることもあります。語感としては、迷惑な存在だけでなく、時に手強い相手としてのポジティブなニュアンスも含みます。
And most of the time, he is a bit of a nuisance. And most of the time, he is a bit of a nuisance when he's trying to use the sort of laces technique to get under the ball.
レーシズテクニックとは、サッカーでボールを強く正確に蹴るときに使われる基本的な技術で、靴紐がある部分、つまり足の甲を使って蹴る方法のことで、インステップキックとも呼ばれます。つま先ではなく、足の甲でしっかりミートすることで、ボールに安定した回転やスピードが加わります。英語の解説動画やサッカー実況では、He uses his laces といった形でよく登場する重要表現です。
When he's trying to use the sort of laces technique to get under the ball. When he's trying to use the sort of laces technique to get under the ball.
いかがでしたか？他のプレミアリーグの右ウィンガーと比べても、久保建英はどの項目でも遜色ないと言えるのではないでしょうか。得意とするドリブルとクロスの回数では確かに秀でていると言えそうですが、その成功率という点では少し下がり、その精度と成功率という点では、やはり伸びしろがあるのではないでしょうか。久保建英が大好きなのは日本人はみんな同じだと思いますが、一番大きな指標であるゴールやアシストが少ない点も、レアルソシエダのチームが悪いのであって、久保建英は悪くないという意見が多いようにも見える中、久保建英自身の課題や伸びしろも、少し見えてくるものではないでしょうか。確かに簡単にボールを失ったり、パスがずれたり、クロスやシュートが大きく外れたり、というのは、よく見る気もしますし、その精度と正確性が、もう少しでも向上すれば、 さらにトップオブトップのウィンガーの仲間に入るのではないかと想像し、その伸びしろに期待さえ感じます。実際に6000万ユーロは5000万ポンド、日本円にすれば100億円となる契約解除金を支払うには、もう少しレベルアップが必要にも感じますが、それもまたビッグクラブに行くことで、急に成長する可能性があるものだとも感じます。後半部分では、久保建英の獲得の噂があったリバプール、アーセナル、ニューカッスルで、どのようなプレーや役割ができるのかを話していますので、皆さんの興味がありそうでしたら、後半部分も扱いたいと思います。本日もご視聴いただきありがとうございました。またすぐにお会いしましょう。